Hi, my name is Vicki Brooke. I'm with Virginia Commonwealth University, and this is part of a series of presentations related to customized employment. This particular session today that we're going to spend the next hour together with is on long-term supports. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here with my slides. And so we're going to talk about long-term supports, and this is a time where an individual has gone through the discovery process. They have then helped to identify through the discovery process certain career interests or career themes, and then from that there's been a job match. From that they've found a job, and there's been an employment specialist to help them get support on the job, and now we're maintaining that job. So sometimes it's referred to as follow-along supports, and it really starts to occur once the individual or the new employee is actually stable on his or her job, meaning that there's very little support, maybe in one or two job areas, but by and large the individual is pretty independent on their job. Yet the employment specialist is going to want to continue to check in with the employee and the employer to assess both their satisfaction, to see if performance is maintaining and if they're still happy with what they're doing. So for me, long-term supports really puts the quality in employment services. Why is it important? Because you want to monitor performance. So just because at the end of job site training and they seem fine in their job, things change. So monitoring their performance, supporting them with maybe training with their employer or coworkers, how to take employer feedback. Maybe they're not used to that. What happens when there's job changes or task changes? Change of management has always been an issue for the folks that we serve. Maybe the one manager hired our individual, and now there's a new manager there. So you have to go back in and talk about your program and the services that you provide, and really kind of maybe do some disability awareness training. You just may have to do some retraining on skills that have already been learned. Support around family issues. We know something could be occurring in the family and it's going to carry over to work. Assessing satisfaction, and then really there's always crisis intervention. So for the next little bit, I want to talk about compensatory strategies. Here's lots of pictures of different compensatory strategies that most of us use. My iPhone, a notebook, sticky notes. So compensatory strategies really enhance the employee's ability to work independently. So rather than me staying on the job site and prompting the individual maybe about what's the next step in their job sequence, they could just simply look down on a picture notebook or on a list, and they could do that independently. So it may actually eliminate the need for instruction, and it may also eliminate the need for an employment specialist to be on the job site for an extended period of time. So, which is really one of the things you want to avoid, because again, that can build dependency that you don't want to have happen. I will say having the employee's input in developing the compensatory strategy is really important. I'll tell a story on myself. I was working with an individual who was at a university, and they had to move from different areas of the campus. So that night I went home, and my family and I developed this really beautiful map. And it was all labeled, and it was so beautiful. I went to work the next day and laminated it. But when I presented it to the new employee, they did not like it at all. What he did was develop his own map, and it was really functional for him. So the step that I left out was really involving in my need to hurry up and get it done for work the next day, I left him out. And really, if it's his compensatory strategy, he needs to be involved with it. And also, making sure that the coworker or employer has seen it too. The last thing you want to do is design something that would be stigmatizing to the individual. So maybe it's something discreet that is hung in their locker. So you just want to pay attention to that. And the supports could be altered based upon the need of the individual. So it's not going to be a one size fits all. You have to really tailor it to the individual. And I love the saying, tell me, I'll forget, show me, I may remember, but involve me, I'll understand. And that was the lesson I learned from going home and developing pretty maps. So this is just a list of just a few of the job site challenges that employment specialists face on a regular day. Tantrums, self-stemming behavior, off-task, on-task behavior, personal hygiene issues. So how do you deal with them? You want to deal with them quickly and efficiently before it becomes really a big problem for the employer, and all these things can lead to somebody being fired. So you want to get to it as quickly as possible. So some of the supports that could be provided would be a written list. If somebody doesn't read, then it could be in visuals. Task analysis can be written for both hard skills and soft skills. Often decision trees are really helpful. If, kind of going through, if this, then this, if this is done, then move over to this. Assistive technology, just alarms, technology alarms. I use alarms all day long. And also following scripts. So let's look at a couple of these. Here's an individual who has a difficulty moving from task to task. So, or from, job duty to job duty. And that's true for a lot of our individuals with autism. So having their own list that they're in control of, and they know what the next task is because they can look down on the sheet and they can check it off. That prepares them for the next change. Get paper, then you go to meet or mail, then you do project deliveries, and they could just check it off. And they can make particular notes about something that may have occurred during their deliveries. Here's an example of assistive technology where I would say in most cases we haven't had to use a lot of rehab engineer support, but this is a gentleman who got a job at the movie theater, which I can say is probably pre-COVID, and this device actually tore the ticket. So he could sit there and run it across and it would tear the ticket, and he could keep the one stub would go into that box below, and he could hand the other end to the movie participant. Here's a challenge that we had an individual working in the hospital, and because he had difficulty, we could understand him, but it was difficult for the patients to understand him, and they needed some clear communication when he walks into a hospital room. So the resolution was just making a recording on an iPod. Hi, my name is Jeff. I'm here to stock your supplies. So just a quick one sentence, and he hits it every time he walks into a patient's room. Here's another example of just the Notes app that's on your iPhone. We had an individual who used a specialized transportation that's called, in Richmond, Virginia, called the Caravan. And if it was running late, she would refer to her notes and call the number. We had to make sure that she was not canceling it because that's what happened many times. So we made a particular note about not to cancel unless you had another ride. Here's another note for her. When she couldn't find a person, she needed to know what her sequence, what she needed to do in those situations, because she got very anxious. So she wrote a note that says, I will place the file under the lock file box. I do not need to ask Norma each time. Yeah, Norma was getting like 1,000 questions. It was taking away from Norma's work production, and it was annoying. Again, that could lead to somebody getting fired. So simply having this, this note for her that she could reference herself was a really helpful strategy in keeping her employed. Here's another way with alarms. I feel like one of my days looks like this. The alarm will go off and it will signify what she needs to do. So she knows when to clock in. There'll be an alarm at 9:05. There'll be another one. She can look down and she can double check her decisions. At 10 o'clock, she knows the alarm's going to go off, and that is to check the mail. She knows at 12:30 it'll go off, and she takes her lunch break, and at 1 o'clock lunch is over. So it just kind of sequences the whole day and just little reminders of what's the next thing in her sequence. Additionally, videos can be used. So what do you do when you can't find a file? You can just click on this video and she can watch herself go through the process of what she needs to do. Again, an employment specialist could be standing over her and providing that support, or she could be independent. And really, I mean, sometimes when employment specialists have been on a job site for an extended period of time, I mean, their voice can become a negative stimuli. So here she can just open her cell phone and look at this video. Again, as I indicated before, like riding the caravan or the specialized transportation really became a big thing for her, and she was very nervous. So again, looking at the video and going through that sequence. Another one for what she does when she needs to check the mail, and then all the tasks that are related to the end of the day. You forget, you just open the video and watch yourself go through all those steps. Thankfully, after being on the job site with this individual for an extended period of time, we found out that she really liked podcasts, and in particular NPR's podcast. It just was really soothing for her. Prior to getting those podcasts loaded onto her phone, she would just dart out in that road that you can see behind her and just keep darting out looking for the van, darting out looking for the van. It was really quite dangerous. The employment specialist had to stay there for an extended period of time, not really providing any work support, but really providing the safety measure. Once the podcasts were on, she was very calm. Here's another example of just a note. What do you do first, and then what do you do next? It's written here. The individual can just go to, it was on a bulletin board that was posted in the room where they get dressed in their scrubs, sort of discreet area, and he would always just check that. Here's an example of, I kind of laugh because it's biscuit making at Hardee's, and who knew you had to have almost a whole degree in biscuit making, but there was a very specific procedure that needed to be followed, and Hardee's wanted it followed every single time. So we took pictures of the sequence of activities and how the biscuits needed to be placed on the cookie sheet, and making sure that they buttered it each time. And so we're able to do that, not provide instructions, but just be able to, the employment specialist was able to fade once they had these visuals. Here is some examples of things to use when an individual is getting frustrated. So the first is just this 5-point scale. So they themselves can kind of keep track of how they're feeling. The second one is stop, take a deep breath. I heard you, give me a minute. And if they're still having a problem, they know that they could call one of their 2 employment specialists. Here is another person that again did the same thing. That again, taking the cleansing breath, this person would squeeze their hacky sack, or they would say Kuna Matata, and then they'd go back to work. So really, it is so individualized what works. It wouldn't work for everybody to say Kuna Matata, but for this individual, it was effective. Squeezing the hacky sack was effective for him. Interpersonal relationships. So these are some of the things that are really hard for our public schools to train on, but it's what happens in the work environment. So it's okay to say hello and smile back to my, and go back to my work task. Not spending a lot of time chatting, but just say hello and go back to task. When you greet a male coworker and friends, for this guy, you can do a handshake and a pat on the back. If he touches your back first, you could also do that. It's not okay for male coworkers to touch female workers. This includes on the shoulders, rubbing, or hugging. We had another, the same fellow would hide behind corners or plants, and he would jump out at people or follow people in the hallway. So all these things had to be listed and identified as not okay. And then each day he'd report on, did he use his hands appropriately? Did he greet female coworkers appropriately? If I had a question about how to greet or talk to someone, I turned to my job coach for help. So just remembering the rules of, you know, all these soft skills that you learn on a job site. This is just an activity that really is a good thing to do with your employments, with the new employee. There are some very clear do's and don'ts in about behavior in a workplace. In some of them, we're not going to have a lot of wiggle room. Some of them, a male employee touching a female coworker could get them fired immediately. So it is really good to kind of talk these out in very clear language and get some agreement from the new employee and kind of get an idea of what they're thinking. What do they think is okay? And clear up any misconceptions right from the beginning. So we often have like a little sheet that's called being professional. So being professional means, what does that mean? It means following a schedule and working, listen to coworkers and use manners, and respond to my alarms. So for this individual, those were his concerns, his areas that were falling off. And so having the sheet to remind him that this is what it takes to be professional. This is just another aid to kind of track break times. He can remind him to set an alarm, whether it's a 15-minute alarm or a 30-minute end of his shift. So a lot of instruction on setting alarms and going back to work. I really like this one. It's a self-monitoring checklist. So where this person was earning a reinforcement, but they were doing it all on their own. So it was their own self-monitoring checklist. They kept track of whether he was professional, whether he finished his skills, schedule, and did he follow HIPAA regulations. So he was working at a hospital. So you could see in the one day he had Monday through Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday were great days. He didn't have such a great day the following Tuesday, but did on Wednesday. So once he had 10 good days, he could go to this area that has treats that that individuals are already identified what they like, and he could go get a bag of Skittles. So again, the nice thing is it's not the employment specialist badgering him or hanging over him, but really kind of talking through with the new employee. Had you done this? Did you stay out of the nursing station? Perfect. That's all part of being professional and keeping your own reinforcement checklist. That won't go on forever. but having it for a while will help him remember what he's supposed to be doing. Here's a checklist, or it really could be done as an activity as you're kind of figuring out what is reinforcing to the individual. And maybe you did something like this during the intake, but now the individual may be working for 4 months, 5 months, maybe 6 months. And so going back through some of the things like, what do you consider your strengths? Well, following a written schedule, I didn't do that before, but I know that I'm really good at that. I'm a team player. I didn't have to be a team player. I didn't know I was going to be good at being a team player because it wasn't part of my school program. What are your preferences? Well, now he knows that he really does like to work alone at his own pace. What are his interests? All of a sudden he likes elevators. He always liked Disney movies and music and shopping. So the nice thing is about having this filled out, should employment specialists turn over, it's really nice to be able to pick this up and know something about Stephen. It also helps Stephen to kind of think through what his interests are, what his preferences are, and what his needs are. He needs a mini little schedules. He needs the cell phone and the alarms. He knows he needs that now. He knows it's helpful for him. So it's really nice to be able to complete something like this and have it in Stephen's file. So Stephen can reference it, the employer can reference it. It's just a really nice little tool. Here's one more, it's a little more elaborate, where Jacob has really identified things that are important to me, helping others on my team, the well-being of others, being independent in my job. He's identified additional supports that he needs. If I need help with work or social skills, please let my manager know. They can contact my job coach who can provide me extra support that I need. So it's kind of like Jacob is in control of his job. He's identified 6, 7 ways to support him at work. He has a passion for helping others, doing a good job. I like to play baseball. So I love honey buns. So there's personal things, work-related things, and personal things about Jacob that could be helpful for a change in management. It could be helpful for a change in employment specialist. And it's just a way to get to know Jacob in a really nice, informal way and really kind of kick off conversation with him. So how often should you provide support for an individual in at this stage of employment? Well, I would say at least twice a month. At one point it was part of the federal legislation and it's not right now, but twice a month. It doesn't have to be long, but you're just going to go in and make a check. Has the manager changed? Has there been a difference in work? Has new job duties been added? Check in maybe with the coworkers. Oftentimes, if something was going awry on a job site, coworkers are going to know about it long before maybe the manager might know about it. Talking to all of them, including the employee, of course. Are you still happy with work? Do you still like this work? Are you thinking about moving in the organization? What does that look like for you? So continue to do this at least twice a month. Just a real quick check-in can be really helpful, and maintain employment. So you've made this big investment in the individual to go through discovery and job development and the job matching and then the job site training and support. So popping in a couple times a month is not so time intensive to help the individual kind of maintain their job. So I just want to say thank you very much. I enjoyed talking to you today. I really love the long-term support component of customized employment. I think it's really important. It's probably the least researched, the least understood area of customized employment. But again, it's really the quality part of customized employment. So I thank you very much. I enjoyed being with you. I hope to talk to you again.